it off because I was too tired by the end of all the researching I was doing. We are going to talk tonight about Paris, France. Well, no, not just Paris, France. We're going to touch on a few other things further into this report because there's a lot of stuff becoming very clear. But we're going to talk about, of course, the big terrorist attack that happened in Paris on Wednesday. Now, I'm not going to get into the details. You've all seen the mainstream coverage. There's no need for me to go through the storyline of what happened when and all the rest of it. So what I'm going to do is I've been taking copious amounts of notes and watching a ton of videos, which after this goes out, when I've got all the transcription, the recording all done, we will put an actual set video up of this. It'll have, as usual, all the links down below of all the stories that I've been watching, links to the videos, etc., etc. And my notes, which are kind of a disaster, but they tell an interesting story. So the first thing I want to talk about is, obviously, this is a false flag attack. It's not even questionable at this stage of the game. The amount of information that the alternative media has gotten out and got out really fast, pinpointing all the ridiculousness behind all of this, was amazing. It was amazing to watch people pull this together. Dutch Since's video that he put out so fast on Wednesday was phenomenal, and so many others. But there's a lot of little pieces and a lot of little dots that are missing even in the alternative stuff. So that's what we're going to focus on today, because there's a lot of things that were going on just before this attack on Wednesday, and of course the one in the grocery store on Thursday, and just after. Okay, very interesting pieces. Before I go any further, though, I know that we could have newer people here who don't understand the concept of false flag, and when I come off and say immediately this was an absolute false flag attack, they might get a little, how can you say that? So I'm going to give you the one piece that told me instantaneously that this was a false flag attack. And anyone with any kind of military or military experience or background dealing with weapons of any kind are going to back me up on this. In the video that shows the two gunmen coming out of the building and they shoot down the cop, okay, point blank range, they were 3 feet away from the guy, and they shot him with an AK-47. You shoot someone in the head with an AK-47, even from 10 feet away, there's no head left. It's not a matter of where's the blood. It would be a matter of there would be pieces of his head all over the sidewalk. Now, for those of you not familiar with me from removing the shackles, I'm ex-military. I was in the Canadian Armed Forces for a while, and I have experience with fully automatic rifles, and I've actually had the opportunity to fire off an AK-47 many years ago, one that a friend of mine owned, and let me tell you, that does not sound like an AK-47. This is, for me, because of my personal background, immediately when I saw that video, there was no question about it. At that point, I didn't have to go searching for research to try and figure out if it was a false flag attack. There was zero question. You shoot a guy in the head with an AK-47 and there's no blood, it is fake. 100% of the time, there's no question. Now, I want to get into some of the very interesting things that were going on. The stuff between the media and the police in France was, quite frankly, hysterical, where the media was coming out and giving pieces of information, and then the French government or the police would come up behind and say, yeah, no, it actually didn't happen that way. It was first thing in the kosher grocery store, oh, there's 2 hostages been killed. That's what the media said. And of course, then the French government release said, no, actually, no one's been killed. There was a whole lot of that going on through the entire reporting. And just like the false flag in Ottawa, Canada, just like the false flag attack that we just saw in Sydney, Australia, the media ran huge holes all the way through this. But let's talk about what happened just before this happened. Actually, we're going to stop for a second. We're going to talk about, first of all, the next piece. And like I said, I tend to make the assumption that everyone knows the background of these false flag attacks, and I know that that's not entirely true. So the very fact that these guys apparently ran out into the street, the original 2 shooters, ran out into the street telling everyone, we're from Al-Qaeda. I mean, first of all, really? You just go around announcing to everyone that, oh yeah, and by the way, I'm from Al-Qaeda. Don't forget to tell the press. You know. Anyone who knows anything about what's actually going on in the world knows Al-Qaeda is CIA. It's a CIA op. I am not going to get into the massive amount of details, although I will have a couple of links posted below. If you are unsure, if you're a little shocked to hear this, Google Al-Qaeda and CIA, and you'll very quickly fall down the rabbit hole of the truth about who is actually running Al-Qaeda. Now, we have a bunch of things that happened just before this. Now, one of the first things is that France recognized Palestinian statehood. This is a major one. And France set off a stampede when the lower house voted to recognize Palestine. Now Palestine is at the International Criminal Courts and are poised to take down Israel for genocide. 1. Just 3 weeks before this happened, there was a report that ran through the alternative media, and it got touched on by a couple of the smaller mainstream media outlets, that France was considering leaving NATO. Why? Because of the CIA torture report. This is a major deal. France leaving NATO is a serious blow to the European bloc section of NATO. Okay? In the US, the day this happened, the Federal Terrorism Risk Insurance Act expired, and the Senate voted 93-4 to revive it. Okay, now that's US. Doesn't matter. This all ties in together. Now, one of the interesting things that came out about this is, and of course, this report came out on Friday, meaning yesterday, yet you have to look at the information that was in it. Chancellor George Osborne in the UK, and of course, the UK right now is just going nuts. Anti-terrorism, oh, we've got threats, Al-Qaeda's coming to get us. They are really taking this ball and running with it as fast as they can. Chancellor George Osborne pledged additional funding to Britain's secret services to protect the state from the heightened terror threat it has emerged. Britain's intelligence services were given the money in the last few weeks. Really? So the report comes out Friday. The terrorist incident happens on Wednesday. Yet they already gave all the money to the British security forces a few weeks ago. Very, very interesting. Oh, the day before this happened, France announced an aircraft carrier was heading to the Gulf. Also very, very interesting. Now, we have a lot of stuff that I'm going to talk about, little bits and pieces. Things that make you question, go, like the Obama administration is already mobilizing the UN Security Council, and the FBI is helping with the French investigation. Except, isn't it the Federal Bureau of Investigation? Why is the FBI, which is supposed to only work within US borders, helping with an investigation in France? Things that make you question. Now, with the second part of this that all happened, and we have the man and the woman who apparently shoot a policewoman, and then they hole up in a kosher grocery store, and a kosher they make a big deal of announcing it was a kosher grocery store they were holed up in. This is actually kind of humorous because immediately Benjamin Netanyahu starts screaming that this is, some terrible, terrible slight to the Jewish people because they chose a kosher grocery store. Meanwhile, the guy apparently himself told the news agency when they called that he just ran into the first building that was there. So, sorry, Benjamin, no one cares. Now, some of the little interesting things that happened immediately after the original shooting that happened on Wednesday. If you're running a media agency, and I get it, media, the news has to go out. Within hours, I mean literally within hours, the media agency's website is changed so that the homepage shows the famous Je suis Charlie. So first off, I'm like, really? Your coworkers are apparently dead, and you just had terrorists blow up the whole place, and you took the time to change your website? It's interesting. I also found it interesting that an RT said that the lawyer for Charlie Hebdo said that they would be printing their magazine on schedule, but this time they're going to print 100,000 copies. Their lawyer? I'm not sure why the lawyer was actually giving this information to the public. It would seem more like a PR marketing type thing, personally. But you got to ask and you got to wonder. Now, one of the other things that's very interesting about this is that since then we've had a few things come out. And one of the things for me I looked at was the fact that within hours of this original shooting taking place, you have rallies all over France, people gathering, and not just, 100 or 200 people, like literally tens of thousands of people gathering in Paris to mourn this situation. Now, I don't know, personally, if there's been a terrorist attack in downtown Paris, the last place I'm going to go stand around is downtown Paris. So that was kind of unusual. Then you take it and you look at the next day, less than 12 hours, well, I guess we would say less than 18 hours after this taking place, there were rallies worldwide. Instantly. It was like all over the world, hundreds of thousands of people were gathering. And it just seems like, wow, awfully pre-planned. You have the fact that the hashtag on Twitter, Je suis Charlie, went ballistic within 2 hours of the media report going out. The tagline, right there, out, boom. I believe the tagline even made it out as a hashtag before the sign was put on the Charlie Hebdo website. So explain that to me. Kind of interesting. Don't you think? The kind of timing where that all pulls together. Now, I've got piles and piles of details, and like I said, I will actually go through all of these, and I'll publish all the links down below, all the videos, etc. But there's a couple of things going on right now that really, really have me watching very closely at the moment. Now, obviously, the media today and yesterday are running, and I'm talking mainstream media, your CNN, your BBC, they're running a huge amount of stories about how, oh, our security is not good enough, and we're going to have to tighten security, take away more freedoms of the people, because, be afraid, obviously, there's the terrorists are on the attack. Above and beyond that, there's been a couple of other little articles that have come out. Now, some of them I'm going to, and I will actually go into much greater detail tomorrow night on Transpicuous News on the regular report. But last night, I was actually crawling into bed and, going through all the massive amount of information in my head. And then all of a sudden, I sat there and I had a couple of things flash into my mind. One was a story I was following earlier this week about a World War II bomb being discovered in Berlin, Germany, and how they had to evacuate 10,000 people from this area. Now, the story was run on RT. So whenever I pick up something like that, the first thing I do is go and verify it. I cross-reference it to other media to get different perspectives of how this is being reported on. And strangely enough, the first thing I saw was that the only other reports I could get were from December 19th. And I found 3 mainstream media reports about the exact same thing, of a World War II bomb being found in Berlin. 10,000 people had to be evacuated December 19th. RT runs the story this week as if it's brand spanking fresh news just happened. So immediately alarm bells go off. And then I go looking a little further in, and there's a mainstream media article run by several of the outlets 3 days prior to the RT report saying they have such a problem in Germany with all these old World War II bombs just randomly showing up. They just dig them up, and it's a real problem. It's very dangerous. Now, the fact that that article came out 3 days before RT ran a report portraying it as being immediately just having happened, even though it obviously happened back at December 19th, raised a huge amount of alarm bells for me. This is a setup piece. I can guarantee you this. So when I started putting some information together, well, lo and behold, very, very quietly announced on Thursday, France and Germany and Russia are holding meetings in Berlin January 18th to discuss the situation in the Ukraine and to come to a resolution of peace. Now, the fact that it's Germany and France is very, very telling because, again, we have this situation that's just happened in France. And I'm going to say that my alarm bells tell me that we are going to be looking at seeing the next false flag attack is probably going to be in Germany. And I would be looking very carefully in Berlin around the 18th because of that meeting. Maybe just before it, in order to have an excuse for someone to step in and have to call the meeting off. 2 and 2 don't add up. Now, to further this, and the false flag stuff that's going on right now, okay? I said, like Sydney, like Ottawa. Oh, I got a side note for you guys, and the Canadians here will definitely appreciate this. Sergeant at Arms Vickers, who is the savior in the Canadian, Ottawa, Canada terrorist attack, who shot the terrorist dead, apparently is being rewarded because he's just been made the ambassador to Ireland. I'm not really sure how a sergeant at arms who was guarding Parliament all of a sudden has the qualifications to be made the Irish ambassador, but I find it interesting, don't you? Anyway, today there was another false flag attack. The media really tried to push it, but they can't quite seem to distract the people enough. People are really heavily focused on this shit in France, and now there's this pull over here. Look over here, because if you notice, they always jump. Each of these distractions is far away from each other. So they take your attention from Sydney, Australia to Malaysia. Oh, now we're going to go up here to France. Oh, now we're going to go down to Africa. In Nigeria, today it was announced that Boko Haram killed 2,000 people. They wiped out an entire village in Nigeria, purportedly. Yeah. Now this is an important one to follow, because this is another one that they have tried to sell. The US has tried to sell the public on this Boko Haram group, who is Al-Qaeda and known to be Al-Qaeda. As a matter of fact, I will be posting links to press stories from Press TV proving that Boko Haram is Al-Qaeda from 2013. Okay? They tried to push all these teenage girls, 240 of them got kidnapped back last spring. It didn't work. It kind of ran for a bit, didn't keep people distracted for very long. People just didn't fall for it. So now we've got it again. They're pushing this again. We've watched them. The US needs to get into Nigeria. Why? Because Nigeria has a shitload of oil and a lot of other stuff. It's a very energy-rich country. They tried to push the whole Ebola thing and say, oh, Nigeria has Ebola, and it was completely disproven that Nigeria did not have Ebola at all, and they've continuously pushed this. So we had the thing in France, and now we have apparently a massacre of 2,000 people in Nigeria. Distract, distract, distract. It is really important right now that people keep their eye on the ball, because the distractions are very, very blatant. And they're very easy to see through if you keep your eyes open. Okay? So that is most of what I wanted to talk about tonight. I am going to be back tomorrow night at 9 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time with the regular Transpicuous news. And I have a lot of stuff for you tomorrow night. There's been a lot of stuff going on in the last week, besides the crap in France. Okay? So I will see you all tomorrow night on Transpicuous News. Good night, everyone.
Before we get very far into our next story, we do have a warning for you tonight. What you're about to see and hear may not be suitable for children. Tonight, take a walk in their world.
Transpicuous News, connecting the dots between the lines.